Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Revolution Recap. It didn't take long for our first off-season episode, as the Revs have made a couple of pretty significant trades, made a contract extension, and have drawn their Champions League opponent for this upcoming season. And we're here to talk about all of it. I am Greg Johnstone. Joining me today is Kris Valukis. Kris, how are you?
You know, doing not too bad. We just had some winter weather up here in Maine, and trying to get through all of that and try to look ahead to brighter days, maybe some CCL time coming up soon. Looking forward to that and seeing what other roster moves might be coming along. Looking forward to talking about it and getting the first off-season show underway.
Yeah, don't worry, Kris. You only have about 5 more months of winter now that you've relocated to Maine. So
it's a good thing I like winter. So.
Also joining me today, a Revolution Recap debut, Tanner Rebelo of the Trifecta Network, joining us today. Tanner, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys. Excited to get started and talk about the Revolution.
And, I'm very excited to have you on. This is we've had you on our list for a long time as a guest, so we're really excited to work you in here in the off season. Let's get started. The biggest news so far, the Sebastian Lletget trade. The Revolution made a trade with the LA Galaxy, receiving Lletget. They've traded $500,000 worth of allocation money, which has been broken down over 2 years, $300,000 in 2022, $200,000 in 2023. There's also an additional $800,000 in allocation money that is incentive-based over the next 2 years. So they've traded $500,000 worth of allocation money up to, or potentially up to, $1.3 million in allocation money. A very MLS move, a very, very complicated move that is very confusing and tough to grade, but we're going to try to do it here. Tanner, what do you think of this move? What's your reaction to the move? And how do you think Lletget will fit in New England?
I think right off the bat, if you look at this move and you look at the previous offseason's failures, Bruce Arena really brought in talent that didn't end up panning out, and it's really unproven MLS talent. So you bring in Lletget. This is a player he knew for the Galaxy, he knew with the national team, and Lletget has a track record in Major League Soccer of being a very good player. He hasn't really lived up to his potential in recent years with the Galaxy, but that's mostly in how they deployed him. I think Bruce knows his strengths, and I think with the Revolution, his role is going to be more simplified in the attacking midfield with Carlos Heel, and I think it was a very smart move by Bruce Arena. This is a proven talent, and when you're in a win-now mode with this team, you have to get that, and it's going to cost you money, and that's what they ended up doing. It was smart.
Kris, what are your thoughts on this move so far?
Yeah, I'm kind of going to echo a bit of what Tanner's saying. It's a smart move. Sebastian Lletget is obviously a Bruce Arena guy. Bruce Arena, when he was with the Galaxy, acquired the rights to Sebastian Lletget from the Revolution for $50,000 in GAM, TAM, some sort of XAM. And it worked out pretty well for him there. That got him, I think, where was he coming from? The West Ham Academy or something at the time. It brought him into MLS, and it's really interesting how it kind of comes full circle. Now Bruce Arena's back out with New England, of course, and kind of does a reverse trade with all the game. The price, I'm kind of happy with the money that the Revs are going to be paying for it. As far as the player himself, I mean, I've been a very big proponent of Sebastian Lletget as far as U.S. men's national team. I haven't been paying a whole lot of attention to him with the club. I understand that he's been dealing with some rough patches. I know his stats don't necessarily jump off the page as a huge playmaker that maybe justifies that sort of money. But when you look at him, at least when he plays for the U.S., and I know we mentioned before that maybe LA Galaxy didn't really play to his styles, the way that the coaching staff was operating out there. But the way that he's been performing with the U.S. men's national team, the potential is there. The fact that he's a very consistent player, which is something that the Revs need, because Tanner, you alluded to the poor signings that Bruce brought in this past offseason, and maybe bringing in someone that you can rely on, that you can trust a bit more than some unknowns like Captoom or Mafla. I like the idea of just bringing in someone that you know, and someone that you're confident in, someone that you can trust. I love this move, and it's just another stepping stone towards getting to MLS Cup.
Now, one thing that I do want to talk about here before I kind of give my thoughts, but neither of you feel this was an overpay, because some people are pointing out he also comes with a pretty heavy salary. Reportedly has 2 years left on his contract, so that's the 2022 and 2023 season, and his salary last year was $923,750. So he's easily the fourth highest paid player on the Revolution. He's going to take up some GAM. He's going to take up a little bit of that budget charge. Does that concern either of you? It sounds like both of you kind of feel like you have to go out, you have to get this established player to put into your system. Any concerns about the salary? I'll start with you, Kris.
Not really, no. I mean, the Revs are paying over $1 million, I think, combined for Captoom and for Mafla, and you're not getting anything out of that. Give me Sebastian Lletget for under that, and I mean, I think the Revs need to address the salaries of those two players in specific that I just mentioned, because they're not producing to that sort of level. But Sebastian Lletget's a player that is going to come in and impact the team. I mean, unless he has an unworldly drop off that nobody sees coming, then yeah, it's a bad contract. But you can't predict that something like that's going to happen. I would never foresee a drop like that happening. I don't know, Tanner, do you have anything different to say to that?
I think if you look at this move in a nutshell, what they paid for Lletget, it's mostly incentive based, and if he hits those incentives, you're going to be fine spending that other additional $800,000 in GAM. I think from a wage perspective, yes, he's a hit. He's going to be expensive, and if he performs how he did with the Galaxy the last couple seasons, I think Revolution fans will be disappointed. But I think if you look back to what he did on the Bruce Arena, his first year in the Arena, he scored 7 goals. 2016, he had 8 assists. So he performed very well underneath Bruce Arena with the Galaxy, and then at the national team level this year, he has had some success. So I don't think you have to be too concerned about it, because you need a proven player, and you're going to pay money for that. But I do agree, his salary, based on what his performance with the Galaxy was higher than it should have been. But I think under Bruce Arena, it makes sense to make that move and get better performance out of him.
I was kind of expecting a little bit less in allocation money, although as you brought up a very good point, Tanner, that this is all incentive-based, or most of it is incentive-based. So if this doesn't work out, in theory, the Revolution aren't going to be giving up. Although it should be noted, we don't know what the incentives are. I think we'd have different reactions if it was games played. If Lletget plays 20 games played, they get all the incentive money. We'd feel different if the Revs win MLS Cup. They have to pay all the incentive money. I think we don't know the details, so we're kind of speculating that it's performance-based metrics and whatnot. But with that aside, assuming that's correct, which I assume it is, I was a little surprised to see up to $1.3 million in allocation money because of the salary. I really, you look at his production from last year, and it seems like a lot for a $923,000 player. But I think, as you both have said, this is a known commodity to Bruce Arena, and I also think he's very versatile. I think he can play on the right wing, he can play in the center, and when you have Carles Gil who kind of roams around, this seems like the type of player that can create with Carles Gil and kind of supplement Carles Gil and really kind of add another attacking presence in that midfield, which you need to replace Tejan Buchanan. So I was a little surprised at the number. I don't necessarily want to call it an overpay, but I think putting this in an incentive-based deal and also spreading it out over 2 years was very wise, because it's one thing to pay $1.3 million in allocation money. It's another thing to pay $1.3 million in allocation money over 2 years. That's certainly a much more cap-friendly type of deal.
Yeah, and I think the other piece with Sebastian Lletget that everyone is kind of looking at is specifically coming from one of the press conferences where Sebastian basically said that he was given the keys to play Cam by Bruce. I'm not sure exactly what the quote was. I don't have it in front of me, but that definitely had some people concerned. And I know I am kind of concerned from that comment as well. What does that necessarily mean for the formation? What does that mean for how he's going to fit? Is Sebastian Lletget not necessarily going to be replacing Tejan so much? Maybe is it an upgrade over Tommy Mack? Is that what we're looking at with this? I'm not really sure. Tommy Mack, of course, didn't really play like a cam position, but he kind of floated in there, and maybe that's something that we're looking at. That's right now the biggest concern for me about this. I think the way the contract is structured, the way that the transfer is structured, especially over the 2 years, it's all good money, smart money, good decisions. It's stuff that you expect from Bruce Arena. But how does Sebastian Lletget fit on this Revolution team?
We did get a question here from Paulo. He asks, what are the expectations for Sebastian? This is a bit of a tough question for me because it's hard to quantify because we don't know his role. He didn't score a ton of goals last season. I can pull up his numbers. I do know he scored 23 goals in 158 appearances for the LA Galaxy. I don't remember how many exactly he has last season, but Kris, I'll let you take the first bite of this apple. What are your expectations for Sebastian in year one with the Revolution?
I think it's really hard to try to put some expectations on what we could see from year one. Again, I think it goes back to where is he going to be playing. So if he's playing more attacking midfield role, dueling alongside Carles Heel, and they bring in a replacement for Tajon Buchanan with a more attacking minded piece, I would like to see him. I like that 7 goal number that he did in LA with Bruce. I think that would be good. I'd like to see him get some more assists than that too. Maybe something like a 7-7 type performance I think is good. But then you're looking at the money that you're paying. Maybe you expect a little bit more than that. So I think on the low side, I think that's the expectation is probably 7 goals, 7 assists, somewhere in that range.
For the record, before we kick it over to Tanner, I'll give you his stat lines over the past couple of years. And we're just looking at goals and assists. We can kind of go further. But 3 goals, 5 assists last year in about 1,800 minutes. He had 6 goals and 4 assists in 2020 in 1,700 minutes. He had 3 goals, 6 assists in 2,300 minutes in 2019. And then 3 and 2 in about 1,900 minutes. So we might be getting expectations of like 4 goals, 6 assists. Should be noted his past success over the last 4 years, 92%, 84%, 91%, 88%. Those are elite numbers right there. So it's not all about goals and assists. But Tanner, do you have any expectations for Sebastian Lletget in the first year?
Yeah, and I think you kind of hit it on the head there, right, with those percentages, because you're going to look at goals, you're going to look at assists, but I think what he's going to be able to do in the midfield is really add attacking quality that they lacked. If you looked at Tajon Buchanan, he's sort of on that outside, on the wing, one-on-one, but Sebastian Lletget's a better passer of the ball, and I think he's really going to give benefit not only to Carles Heel, but I think Gustavo Bo and Adam Books will have an additional elite service into the box from Lletget. So that's what I would expect him to really thrive in that attacking midfield role. Not so much on the goal number, but really on the assists. I would like to see him get the double-digit assists, really taking the pressure off of Carles Heel and letting him be a little bit more freer.
Very good points. We do have one more trade to talk about. Sadly, we say goodbye to Teal Bunbury. This was actually the first trade the Revolution made in the offseason. It was done in the half-day window, which was, I believe, last Sunday morning. Teal Bunbury traded to Nashville for $75,000 worth of allocation money, up to an additional $75,000 in incentives, so potentially $150,000 in GAM. But at worst, it's $75,000. Tanner, I'll go to you first. What are your reactions to this trade?
I think it was the Revolution clearing cap space. It freed up approximately $400,000 in cap space for 2022, so allowed them to be flexible, bringing in Lletget, who's going to have that higher wage bill. So I think first and foremost it was that, and they also wanted to get it done before the expansion draft when they'd have to potentially protect Teal Bunbury.
That's a good point. Teal Bunbury at $375,000 last year. You can kind of expect there to be maybe potentially a little bit of a raise. Actually, did he have a raise in 2021? Give me 1 second. Yeah, he had a raise in 2021, it looks like. He went from 237 to 375. So he probably was going to be in that high 3s to low 4s for next season. That's a pretty decent chunk. And as we talked about Lletget and the salary cap hit he took, Teal Bunbury is essentially half of that. So clearing Bunbury off the books was a very, very wise move there. Although Tanner, it is interesting to note, I expected that to be an expansion draft move, so they didn't have to use the Bunbury for the slot. But did we ever figure out if they used all 12 slots? I think you emailed the team. Did you ever get a response on that?
No, they did not give a response, but based on the current mapping, they didn't use 12. The only player that I potentially thought could have been the 12th was Henry Kessler, but he's still in the Generation Adidas status, so I think they only used 12. but no one would confirm it to me, and I don't know why.
In the most MLS of moves, the Revs, the expansion draft happened. The Revs didn't lose anyone. I don't think anyone really was at risk of being lost. Maybe some people thought maybe Emma Boateng could be lost, which I think maybe in a scenario where maybe a team needs a winger, they do a sign and trade type of move. But Boateng didn't even have 400 minutes last year, so I don't know if he really was ever a primary candidate to be selected. But based on the math, the Revs only protected 11 players, which is interesting. I don't think I've ever seen that before. It was a little confusing. It had some people wondering if there was an additional signing. It had people wondering if the Lletget trade was official, but the Galaxy didn't have to protect anyone because they lost someone in the expansion draft last year. So that's a whole nother story we can get into to why they only protected 11. But I had the same reaction that moving Bunbury might be a expansion draft play, but they didn't need that slot anyway, it seems like. So kind of funny how it all ends up in hindsight. But yes, I agree with everything you said there. I think this is a bit of a salary dump type of move for the reasons I just mentioned. It sucks to see Teal Bunbury leave after 8 years in a salary dump, but ultimately, if you look at kind of his numbers last year and the role he had last year, he was kind of a backup striker. He didn't seem very effective at times, and he's on the wrong side of 30. I think his time in New England had just kind of come to an end. So it kind of sucks to see Teal leave in this way. Certainly a great teammate, certainly had the respect of a lot of people in that locker room. But I think this is the best for both parties here, where Teal Bunbury can kind of go to Nashville in a system he probably fits a little bit more, whereas I think the Revolution needed someone a little younger, a little quicker. And Teal Bunbury's role just kind of got reduced over time. Kris, anything you want to add on the Teal Bunbury trade?
No, I mean, you guys covered it all. I'm gonna miss seeing Teal play for the Revs. Hopefully he does well down in Nashville, but not too well. Actually they're in West Conference now, so I don't care. Hope he does great. Hope he tears it up.
That's right. Something tells me the Western Conference is going to drop their 13-win narrative. They're gonna find out really quickly that when Nashville is in your conference, you don't win as many games. You certainly have a lot more draws. So
yeah.
Teal Bunbury, as of right now, Teal Bunbury is all over the Revolution history book. He's 4th in team history in goals with 45, 7th in games played with 231, 4th in shots and shots on goal with 378 and 147 respectively, and he is tied for 3rd in game-winning goals with 16. And to be honest with you, I kind of thought it was a lot more than 16 because he certainly had a lot of clutch moments over the years. So very significant player in Revolution history. We can have the debate over whether or not he's a club legend another day. I'm sure Brad Feldman will yell at me if I say he isn't, but certainly a very, very impactful player over the last 10 years. And before we get to the other news of the week, I wanted to take a minute and talk to you about our sponsor, Golasso Kits. Golasso Kits' mission is to bring unique vintage jerseys to your home with a catalog of jerseys, jackets, scarves, and more from clubs and national teams from over 80 countries in the world. They have a variety of U.S. men's national team as well as Revolution merch, including some items with the crayon flag. The Revs aren't selling crayon flag merch anymore, and some people think the crayon flag is dead, but Golasso Kits doesn't. So if you want to keep the spirit of the crayon flag alive, go check out Golasso Kits right now, where you can buy some crayon flag items, including a 2000 red Revolution windbreaker in new condition in all its MLS 1.0 glory. And if you're not sure what you want, you can check out their mystery kit packages, where you can enter your size and what style of jersey you like, and Golasso will surprise you with the kit of your dreams. So go check out GolassoKits.com for their full selection, and make sure you check them out at Golasso Kits on Twitter, and check out Golasso Kits on Instagram for updates on their new inventory every single week. And when you find something you like, use promo code RevsRecap to save 15% off your order. That is promo code RevsRecap at GolassoKits.com for 15% off your order. Links and code are in the show notes. Hey, Kris, you know who should check out Golasso Kits if they really want to wear the United States men's national team kit?
Oh, who's that?
DeJuan Jones.
Oh, I see what you did there.
Yeah, and you know what? He signed an extension this week, Kris.
I heard about this, yeah.
Labeled as a 3-year extension, although reportedly he was under contract through 2022 with a 2023 team option. That was by SBI earlier in the summer. He has signed a contract through 2024 with a team option through 2025. So really this might be a 2-year extension. Might be just kind of a issue of wording. But Kris, what are your thoughts on this DeJuan Jones contract extension?
I love it. Lock him up. It reminds me a bit of the Matt Turner extension that we saw. Was it about a year ago at this point now? The fact that Matt Turner's emerging as a goalkeeper, as a potential best American goalkeeper. If you want to have that argument, I 100% support it. And, Revolution went out and locked him down. DeJuan Jones has really come out of his shell and shown that he could be top of the top when it comes to left backs, possibly within MLS. In my opinion, he was the best 11 left back. Of course, my prediction was Brandon Bye being the best right back. And either way, MLS doesn't award fullback positions in their best 11 team, which still drives me insane. DeJuan Jones, in my opinion, is the best 11 left back in MLS. You have to pay him, reward him for the work he's done, and definitely lock him down, get those years in front of him, because I don't think that he's going to stay in MLS for a whole lot longer.
Tanner, what are your thoughts on DeJuan Jones? And just, I should have added this too. He's locked through his age 27 season, which is 2024. He turns 27 in June 2024. And they have a team option for his age 28 season, really, too. So they're locking up really prime years of DeJuan Jones' career. Tanner, anything to add on the DeJuan Jones contract extension?
I think it's a well-deserved pay bump for DeJuan. He was one of the best left backs in MLS this past season. And I think if you look at sort of the ethos of Bruce Arena and how he approaches his roster building, he rewards players that perform well for him. And if you look at Matt Turner, you look at Gustavo Bo, you look at Brandon Bye, DeJuan Jones, Carlos Gil, these players are not only getting extensions, but they're getting significant pay bumps. And this is really a good trend in the right direction for the Revolution, especially when you talk about players around the league and they're looking at the Revolution and saying they're not only taking care of their players, but they're winning, right? So I think that it's a great sign for the Revs. In terms of DeJuan Jones, he really is one of the best left backs in MLS, one of the best attacking backs in MLS for left backs. So I think it's really well deserved for him, and I'm excited to see what he does going forward because he's only 24 years old still.
I love the way that you spun it to say how it's such a reflection to other, prospective players that might want to come to New England to see how Bruce and the club itself treats the players. So it is a really good sign on that point too. So I love that take.
And Tanner, I'm going to kind of quote some stats you tweeted out about DeJuan Jones when the contract extension was announced. He was third in MLS on shots on target percentage, third in MLS in block shots, as in blocks. He blocked the shot, not his shots were blocked. Defensive block shots. 10th in touches, which I don't think is any surprising. It actually probably feels like he should be higher than that. And he was also 10th in progressive carries. And for a team that really struggled to find a left back and seems to bring in a new left back at a pretty high salary year after year between the Maflas and Butners and Somis and Edgar Castillo and yada, yada, yada. DeJuan Jones has really kind of found his niche at left back. And, this is a guy that was a right winger attacking player in college. And he's really kind of grown and really fit that mold of a left back. And, I do think he deserves some national team consideration. 5th in MLS Defender of the Year. That's very impressive for an attacking left back who's in his 4th year of the league. And Tanner, I also think this is DeJuan Jones' second extension in the Bruce Arena era, if I remember correctly. I might be wrong about that.
Yes, in 2019 they signed him to an initial extension.
Yep. So, and he was previously on a $95,000 salary / about $100,000 compensation. So he's great value with the Revolution. And if he has more than 1 year left on team control, I'm sure he is getting a pretty decent pay bump, similar to the Matt Turner extensions. So I think this is great news. I think this increases the odds that DeJuan Jones stays in New England long term. And even if he does get European interest, I think just adding on years of team control really increases the potential of you getting a much bigger fee for DeJuan Jones as opposed to him potentially leaving as a free transfer. So A plus extension here from me. I got no issues with this. I'm very excited to see DeJuan Jones. I'm very excited to have a left back that we can trust for years to come. It's a good feeling to have.
Trust. It seems to be the recurring theme for the Revolution this offseason so far.
Hey, it is kind of nice to sign good players and lock them down long term. It's something we're not really used to doing, but it's something Bruce does, and I really, really appreciate it. So, Champions League draw, guys. We had the Champions League draw earlier this week. The Revolution got, I'll say lucky. I'm going to say that this is really a best case scenario for the first round of 16 draw, and they got Cavalli AS from Haiti.
It's Cavalli.
Cavalli. I said it correct in the pre-show. My bad. And that's not to be confused with Cavalry, which I think is a Canadian team, which I watched highlights of before realizing my mistake. First leg is going to be away, to be determined. The location to be determined, I believe, in the Champions League, the team from Haiti played in the Dominican Republic due to capacity requirements, and also there's a little bit of civil unrest issues right now. Leg 2 will be in Foxborough in late February. This is a pretty solid draw for the Revolution. No Haitian team has made it past the round of 16 in this competition. Last year, the Haitian team lost 8-0 to a Mexican team who I am forgetting, but obviously this is a great best case scenario for the Revolution. And then a potential second round matchup is between the winner of Pumas and Deportivo Saprissa from Costa Rica. First question here, we got a question here from Not Blue, Not Green. It's Teal, very, very loyal listener who probably needs to update his Twitter name. His question is, how hard are we going to try to win the Champions League? Will this be like the Open Cup where you use a B squad until it gets close? And will they use the games versus Haiti as preseason? Tanner, why don't you take those questions however you want?
I think you really have to look at what team you actually have available to you, in terms of health and fitness and all of that, and who can go the full 90, but also juggling that, you have to be in Portland on February 26th. So I think it's really too early to tell. We'll just be guessing at this point to see who's going to be in the roster and who's going to be in the squad or not. But I think you have to approach them as must-win scenarios because this team's all about lifting hardware, right? So you have to look at this and you can't say, okay, we're playing Cavalli from Haiti. No, this is a must-win game no matter who the opponent is. And I think that's the way the Revolution will approach it is they want to win this first leg, and then they're going to want to win the second leg, and they're going to want to advance into this the quarterfinals because this is a team that wants to win and not just win regular season games, right? And I think this is a really good test for them potentially ahead of MLS Cup in 2022, right? Getting ahead of ourselves a little bit, but this is that one-off chance that they need to win games like this, right?
Do you think, I agree with everything you said there, do you think Bruce will see it the same way, or do you think he kind of sees this as the potential to ease players in, maybe give Carles Gil maybe 45 minutes, maybe limit them as similarly to how they've previously approached the preseason?
I think it's going to depend on what their preseason schedule is and how far in terms of fitness they're able to get Carles Gil up to, or even Sebastian Lletget or, Gustavo Boza question mark as well. And what's even the availability of like a Matt Turner or any of these other players that are playing the World Cup qualifiers in the January window, which this will be after that, but in terms of getting them into camp and getting them back into your system. So I think you could see a rotation for sure, especially in those two games. But I think ultimately you're going to want to go with a solid roster, at least in the Gillette game. And that's an environment you can control.
Very good point, too, about the international windows. The Revs now have Turner. Kessler made an appearance last night with the United States men's national team. Lletget has been making appearances with the United States team. So it's very possible that not only is their camp a little bit earlier, but they might be missing some key pieces in camp due to the international window. Kris, what's your reaction to the draw, and how do you think they're going to approach these games with Haiti?
I think you said it right when you said it's probably the best case scenario to draw Cavalli. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. We all remember Joe Public, and if you don't need to look it up. It's fine. Just ignore history for a little bit, but don't get ahead of the opponent, right? I saw a couple of highlights of Cavalli, right? I didn't watch Cavalry. I watched Cavalli highlights, and I just saw really, I don't want to say sloppy play, but it was definitely scrappy play. And I did see a couple of goals scored from well outside the box, and they were good shots. So if you give the players some space, they can score. They can take nothing and turn it into something. And it's going to be moments like that you're going to really need to be careful for against a team like Cavalli, who's, assuming they're going to be under pressure most of the match, pretty much dominating by the Revolution. If that's not the case, and I think that's a big issue with the Revolution, but they're going to be looking to take those chances whenever they can get them. So I don't want to get ahead of Cavalli, but I like the draw. I think that's a good way to welcome the Revs into the Champions League, to get them back into that type of football. I hope that they go in trying to win every single match that they can. They are paying. Tanner said this team wants to win now. They want to lift hardware, and I think they're they're showing that with when you look at the money that they're spending, bringing in Sebastian Lletget. They have what I would say is the best DP trio in MLS, and then you're adding a extremely high. I'm assuming you'd call him a TAM player. I don't know what the TAM rules are because I don't pay attention enough. But in Sebastian Lletget, almost $1 million salary, and this team is spending to win now. So I'm assuming that they're going to go out and try to win every single game, and that includes Cavalli. And I think Bruce will have the mentality of the team in the right spot, especially coming out of that single game elimination against New York City. Looking to turn this team around. I think that they could actually make some waves in this tournament, and it's going to be a lot of fun either way.
I'll look past Cavalli. I have no problem doing that. I'll say things that might get me in trouble here. So there's very little known about this team so far, but I do know that I think they have one player that is on the Haitian national team. I think it's Dotherson Clairvaux. He has 4 national team caps. Doesn't seem to be very much involved with the squad. And there are some other teams that are from Haitian teams, but Haiti, they do have some quality players, but also, and I don't mean to be disparaging, but they have some USL level players on the Haitian national team. So the fact that there's only one player that has been elevated to the national team kind of tells me that this is not a massively talented roster of star players. I'm not expecting the quality to kind of be there, and I think the Revs should really be able to dispatch them. Not their strongest lineup. I do think that maybe the first round. It is interesting because they do have their season opener right after that second leg. So it's going to be interesting to see how they manage minutes. I would probably lean towards playing some top level players early, try to build up a lead so that second leg isn't going to be, as needed. Maybe you can kind of play some backup players, kind of rest Teal, maybe rest Bo, maybe rest Lletget for that Portland game, and then use them only if you really need to. Type of situation, but really I don't see a reason why they can't build up a solid lead in round one, leg one, and then kind of be able to, I'll say coast, but really I think they should be able to win regardless of who they roster in their lineup. So,
and I think Cavalli hasn't played a competitive match since about May of 2021. So
that's what Sean said. He was looking for information. It looks like they don't have much of a schedule. So it's interesting you wonder where their fitness is going to be. It's going to be interesting to see how this team matches up. But really, I am not expecting anything more than a USL League One to USL Championship side, which, in a knockout scenario, the Revs have lost to USL Championship sides in the US Open Cup before. So I don't want to dismiss them completely. But if they are taking it seriously, I think if they put out their first team lineup, they should roll over them very, very easily. I do not see a scenario in which they get knocked out in the first round. But the question comes, how seriously does Bruce want to take this? I think that is kind of my more pressing concern, that Bruce sees MLS as the major focus and he's really just rolling out Revs 2 players. Then that's a little bit more competitive. That's a little bit more concerning to me. So I do think this is going to be like I think the question here is kind of a good way to put it. Will this be like the US Open Cup where you use a B squad until it gets close? I think that once you do advance, as I say, they should advance to the next round, but if they run into Pumas in the quarterfinals, that's going to be a much tougher task. And, I could see a scenario in which maybe they don't put up as strong a fight because Bruce wants to focus on MLS.
Even Saprissa too. They're a quality side. But my whole hope for Champions League is that New York City make the final and the Revolution make the final, and then the Revs can get some redemption and actually beat New York City Football Club
in penalty kicks.
I don't care, just beat them. But I'll take that too. That's a sweet poetry right there.
Paulo asks us, what are the expectations for the Revolution in Champions League, and what is a success? Tanner, I'll go to you first. What's your expectations, and what is a successful Champions League campaign for the Revs?
My expectations for them to get out of the round of 16, and then if they're in the quarterfinals and they face Pumas, I think it's even Saprissa. I think anything can happen at that point. So my expectations for them to at least get out of that first round and make it competitive in that quarterfinal. Beyond that, I don't really think you should have any more expectation for this team. It's just so early, right, to know how they're going to play, and especially to play sort of must-win games right out of the gate. It's a tall order for them to do, especially in, like, basically preseason.
Kris, anything to add? Kris?
I was on mute, so I apologize.
I'm keeping it in. I'm keeping it in so everyone knows you screwed up.
That's fine. It's the first time I've screwed up all this 2022 season. So
it's not even 2022 yet, so that's a pretty early time to screw up.
That's all right. Anyway, no, I think Tanner covered it pretty well. You expect the Revs to make the quarterfinals and to beat Cavalli. I think if they go out in the quarterfinals against Pumas, against Saprissa, you're like, you know what? That was fun. It was enjoyable football. We got to see, a Mexican team or I forget where Saprissa is from.
Costa Rica.
You get to see a Costa Rica team come to Gillette Stadium. It's going to be a great atmosphere, a lot of fun. You're going to get to see the Revs go travel, south of the United States to multiple times, whether it's Haiti or wherever else. And then, of course, versus Pumas or Saprissa, it's going to be a lot of fun. That's basically what I'm trying to say. If they could get past the quarterfinals, massive success. As soon as you get to the semis, it's a success. How far can they take it at that point? And that's where you're going to be bringing out the heavy guns, I would think. Again, I'm not Bruce Arena. But if they end up losing somehow to Cavalli, that's just going to be the biggest disappointment, and I'm going to throw my computer out the window.
I don't think we have to worry about that too much. Again,
I hope not.
Cursed Revs will be all over me if things go poorly, but I'm not sweating it. I'm expecting some. Not to say that it's going to be a complete walk in the park, but I would imagine the Revs are going to advance. First leg is February 15th. Second leg is February 22nd. I believe that Portland game is February 26th. So there is a bit of a quick turnaround on that second leg, but the Revs at least get to be at home before they travel out west to start their season against Portland. Let's get to some listener questions real quick. David Sibilian asks us, the club needs a Tejan type speedy winger, right? How will having two attacking midfielders work? Kris, you kind of talked about this a little bit earlier about where do we see Lletget playing? Is he more of a central midfielder? Is he going to be playing that central attacking midfielder? Does this change Heal's role? Is he more of a McNamara replacement? Do you think that they still need to go out and get a Buchanan type of winger on this offseason priority list? Or do you think that maybe this is a signal that Bruce Arena is really shifting over to the diamond for good?
It kind of goes both ways in my head right now. So I don't think you need to go get another Tejan player or type player, because going into last season, I was also saying, how does Tejan Buchanan fit onto this field? And I think we saw it a lot throughout the season, through the 2021 season, of Tejan kind of being forced onto the pitch in different positions where maybe it kind of created an awkward formation or something that the team itself didn't necessarily play cohesively to. And I think if you bring in another player exactly like Tejan that plays that same exact style, you're going to kind of take away from some of the strengths of other players on the pitch, where Gustavo Bo or Adam Buxa and how they're going to play off each other up top, where Carles Heel is going to necessarily position himself, although, of course, Buchanan's out in the wing, so that kept Heel central, which I liked. Sebastian Lletget, if he's going to be playing central with Carles Heel, I don't know what that's going to look like. I need to see a lot more of what other signings are going to be coming up. I would think there's something else. You think the outside players, right, were either Tejan Buchanan or possibly Teal Bunbury would get those. And, of course, both those players are no longer with the Revolution. Emma Boateng doesn't seem to have enough trust from Bruce Arena, even though I think that he has enough skill and capability to be a starter in some capacity. I don't think that's going to be happening. So maybe the Revs are still looking for someone to fill that spot. Maybe they're looking to move DeJuan Jones to play higher up the pitch and get Mafla in there. I'd get some value out of that salary. I don't know what they're doing. There's a lot of question marks, and really it's just all speculation right now. We just need some time to tell.
Tanner, do you think the Revs still have a winger on their offseason need list?
I think you hit the nail on the head there in terms of Buchanan playing out of position. I think they really tried to put him in all these different spots just to get him on the field because he is such a talented player and he can take over a game at any moment. But I don't necessarily think he fit well with the rest of the attacking players. And I think the move for Lletget signals that the Revolution are changing their approach in terms of their formation. And I think that is really a holistic change to their offense. So I don't think they're necessarily looking for a Buchanan type player. That being said, they still have one international slot open, and they also have 4 senior roster spots open. So this team isn't done making moves and additions, and they likely will bring in an additional player. But I'm looking for them to bring in a potential striker, because I think if you look at that depth, you have Adam Buksa, and then behind him it's Kiza and Renix, and I think you really need something with more, someone with a little bit more experience up there.
Like a Josie Altidore, we can get the whole band together.
It's not a bad idea.
He's probably available. Is he out of contract with Toronto, or are they just trying to move on from him?
He was released.
He was released?
Yeah.
Hey, I mean, can they afford not to sign him? That's the real question. This kind of fits in with the Josie talk. Carl Setterlund, former Revolution recap guest. He's here on every episode in spirit. He asks us, how many current Revs players will make the United States men's national team squad for the World Cup? 5? I think that 5 might be an exaggeration, but Bruce is trying to get the band back together. So Matt Turner, I'm going to vote Matt Turner. Sebastian Lletget might make the team. Henry Kessler, I would say, is an outside shot. So I'm going to say 2.5 right now, 2 to 3. You guys have any other predictions for potential United States men's national team players?
DeJuan Jones deserves a shot, but with all the skilled, outside backs that the U.S. have in their pool, I don't think DeJuan Jones has a shot at actually getting into the roster at all to really show his worth, which I think is a shame. But I think you got it. 2.5, I think is probably the number.
James Downing asks us, what are your thoughts on the League's Cup for next season? I got to say, this is the first time I've ever thought about League's Cup in my life because the Revolution have never been in it before. Apparently they're in it next season. Tanner, do you have any thoughts on the League's Cup for next season?
I don't. If I'm being honest, I know MLS reshuffled League's Cup for going forward to make it bigger, but other than that, I don't know too much about League's Cup, to being honest.
It's going to expand in 2023, I think, which would make it a little more interesting. But yeah, I just don't care. Kris, do you care about League's Cup?
Not today, no.
Ask us when it's coming up.
I think in 2023 it's gonna be really exciting though. I really do think like Major League Soccer really is using this as a Liga MX like expansion type thing. So it'll be interesting.
I do think it is a cool concept, but what it worries me is this becomes almost like Champions League light, where we already have the Champions League, and it's just basically B team after B team run out there, and this is just a way for MLS to really improve their reserve players and academy players. It's really going to just be glorified exhibitions. And maybe 2023, when every team is involved, maybe it's going to be a little bit more exciting. But from what I understand about certainly the first iteration of League's Cup, which was, I feel like it was played like a month after it was announced. I think like Peter Remise like basically said like it was more of a pain in the ass than anything else. So yeah, I couldn't care about League's Cup, unfortunately, unless we win, in which case it's the most important competition on the schedule. Andrew Yee asks us, am I the only one thinking 1-goal wins were fine? Thought it meant that they could grind out results in the playoffs. And I got to say, I thought that too. And here we are. Kris, looking back, what are your thoughts on that 1-goal win narrative?
Yeah, it is in hindsight pretty shocking to think that we weren't more concerned with it. I think I expressed some concern over the year, the fact that the Revs weren't able to win by more than 1 goal most of the time. I think there was only 2 or 3 games where they actually pulled that off. I wasn't overly concerned about it. My MO or whatever, what I was using to rationalize that was just saying that this is just how the Revolution are. This is how they play. They grind you down and they beat you by 1 goal and they take it to the death. And that's just the way that this team plays. Maybe that's not the way the team should be playing. Maybe the LAFC team that had the record, that would the points record, I should say, from 2018. That team would just destroy opponents, and I believe they also set the goals scored record as well in that season, and it was not a competition necessarily with their opposition. And maybe something like that would be better for the Revs to look forward to in 2022. Yeah, the 1 goal differential really should have been a much bigger red flag.
Yeah, I think if you look at the team, it's really incredible that they set an MLS points record based on how many wins they had to grind out. The games were so close, and they had to grind them out. And in the playoffs, that's every game, right? It is going to be a grind, and you'd expect that they would have that experience. But ultimately, when you're grinding out 1 goal wins, at the end of the day, it's such a close game that it can go either way. And you saw that in that playoff game. It came down to penalties. And when you get the penalties, it really is a coin flip on who's going to win. So I think it's impressive that they won all those 1 goal games. But in the playoffs, it really is a coin flip in those close games, unfortunately. And, they ended up losing. And again, LAFC didn't win in 2019 either. So when LAFC was actually 2019, they had the previous points record. They blew the doors off everybody, but they didn't win MLS Cup. So
I think the issue is in the 1 goal wins are fine for the most part if you're very strong defensively. If your kind of strategy is almost, I'll say, like a Nashville type of team where your strong suit is not offense, but every game you're solid defensively and you're not making mistakes, it's one thing. But the Revs weren't that type of team. The Revs were the type of team that, wanted to score 3 goals a game, and at times were suspect in the back. It certainly came out to play at the New York City FC game where they conceded very early in that game, and then they were fine for the next 100 minutes or so. But I think the Revs really, it's not really the 1 goal wins thing. It's really more the lack of shutouts with the best goalkeeper in MLS that I think in hindsight was the major red flag. Because and we kind of harped on this all season long, which is that I think the Revs needed one more improvement along that back line. Henry, Kessler, John Bell, Andrew Farrell certainly are good players. But are any of them great players? Are any of them spectacular players? None of them are really dominating defensive presences. Maybe Kessler, but Kessler was benched a little bit for the first half of the season. So, I think in hindsight, really the lack of clean sheets that the Revolution had all season long, I think that in hindsight was more concerning than the 1 goal wins for me. But yeah, the people that made the 1 goal win narrative certainly are a little more justified in hindsight. So David B asks us, is there any information on when we could see DeJuan get on the field for Brugge? Which I don't think we have that information. I looked before this podcast. I searched around. We did not find anything. I do know he is taking a bit of an extended break at the time being. I know he's been given some time off during the, between the MLS season and reporting over in Belgium. But I'm not sure if they have to wait for the next transfer window to open. I don't know if the loan ran through a certain period of time or if he's technically a Brugge player currently. But either way, I do not know. Some quick notes to wrap up here. The Revs opened the the MLS Cup odds opened last week, and the Revs open at 7-1 odds. That's according to Bet Online and BetMGM. I believe that's third best. They are behind Seattle and LAFC. Please hold your laughter. I don't know why LAFC is up there either. The 2022 schedule is out, so please make your plans for road trips now. Omicron be damned. Kessler and Turner got a cap last night for the United States men's national team. Another clean sheet for Matt Turner. I believe he set a United States men's national team record for clean sheets in a calendar year with 9, I believe. And also, I don't think we mentioned this on a previous podcast, but Carlos Gil won MVP, rightfully so. That's something we probably should have talked about. But I think we all believe he deserved it, and he absolutely crushed it in the voting, and there were a lot of tears coming out of Nashville. So better luck next time. That wraps us up here. Tanner, anything you want to add? Any final thoughts here before we depart this evening?
No, I think it's going to be an interesting couple weeks for the Revolution with I think they're going to make some additional moves this week, and then obviously going into training camp with the CCL and then the January World Cup qualifying window and all that stuff going on. So it really isn't much of an offseason this year. So.
No, it is not. We are back in the podcasting game 2 weeks into the offseason. Which I'm sure our listeners are extremely happy about. Tanner, where can we find you on social media?
You can find me at Tanner Rebelo on Twitter, and then on Facebook you can find us at Trifecta Sports.
I was just going to say, make sure you follow Trifecta Sports on Twitter as well. One of the very few outlets that covers the Bryant University men's basketball team, which very important. They're having a terrible season, but you should still follow them. Kris, any final thoughts here before you depart?
No, look, I'm in peak off-season form already, so I'm just glad that I made it through this one. Apologies for listening to me rant for however long I did here, but looking forward to some more developments and having some more substantial Revs news to talk about. I mean, Lletget's pretty substantial, but I want to see the team come together. I want to see some formations. I want the preseason to get underway. I'm looking forward to that, and I think that's it. Yeah.
Kris, where can people find you on social media?
Find me over on Twitter at Kris Valukis, or follow me at Revs. What's my thing name? I told you I'm in peak off-season form. Just follow my personal at Kris Valukis. Find me over there. I'll talk soccer. I'll talk personal stuff. I'll talk whatever. Yeah.
And you can follow us on Twitter at Revolution Recap. You can also follow our Revolution Recap Instagram and Facebook pages. Please also check out our sponsor, Golasso Kits, and use our promo code RevsRecap for 15% off your order. And make sure you're following them on Twitter and on Instagram. They have new inventory updates every single week, so you'll be the first to know when there's an item that you want. And also, I don't think I mentioned this, by the way, every order in the month of December gets a free mystery gift. So make sure you get in those orders at Golasso Kits before the end of this month. This might be our last episode, so this is going to be my last reminder. Make sure you get your orders in this month. Free mystery gift. And also make sure you are subscribed on iTunes or wherever you're listening. And please rate and review us 5 stars if you have not already. It helps people looking for Revolution content find it. So please, if you have not already, please give us a rating, preferably a good one. We will be back whenever more Revolution stuff happens. Hopefully that is sooner and not later. As Tanner said, around this time last year, there was a slew of signings. So hopefully we have one more episode before the Super Draft. Until then, thank you everyone for listening, and go Revs.